Hey, this is Nick at Stridewise.com in New York City. Did you know you can get 7 different kinds of loafers? I didn't assume that every company's loafer was identical, but I didn't realize that one company would even be able to sell 7 kinds of loafers. But that's what they do at Beckett Simonon. And today in this video, this unsponsored video, I am unboxing a big pile of them so you can learn the different kinds of loafers you might find on the market because they're not all the same. Now, a fun fact about Beckett Simonon, this company has this business model where everything is made to order and that keeps things super inexpensive, but it also means that they carry basically no inventory. So they only had 5 of their loafers lying around in my size when we were emailing about this video. But the other 2 styles aren't that different and I'll show you them in this video too. So you will become a loafer expert. A loafer, by the way, it's not a moccasin, it's not a driver. Loafers are defined as slip-on shoes with a moccasin-like upper and rigid sole and a heel. Beckett Simonon did send me all these loafers for free. They didn't give me money though. It's not a sponsored video. I probably should have asked for money. I always forget to. I'm not very good at this whole thing. They do take a couple months to make them though. That's the bummer with them. That's how they keep it inexpensive. But that means you should just order them now and then before summer ends, you'll have some loafers. So now is the time to get them. So let's open a box of loafers. Let's see what we got. First up, we have the Tassel loafer. It's called the Bernard at Beckett Simonon. It comes in 7 leathers, including 2 suedes. And Tassel loafers are a very American shoe that emerged in the US in the 1950s and are generally accepted as an invention of Alden, the shoe company known for the Alden India that Indiana Jones wore. So actor Peter Lucas approached them and asked if they could make a shoe that took styling cues from his native Hungary, and one thing led to another, and they came up with this little dancing tassel on a loafer. Now you can kind of put them in the realm of wingtip shoes in that they started out firmly casual, and then as time went on and they had this sort of acceptance in East Coast prep style, they became more acceptable in more dressy situations. So the Tassel loafer hit its peak in the 1980s when they were very common undersuits on Wall Street, and this was demonstrated when George H.W. Bush said his rival Bill Clinton was supported by, quote, every lawyer that ever wore a tasseled loafer. The Style OG has this video on YouTube where he talks about how he likes the way that a tassel adds some ornamentation to an outfit, like a little oomph, he says.
To give him a little oomph.
And emphasizes its ability to take a boring outfit like a black sweater and jeans up a notch, which I agree with.
As just the right amount of oomph.
Since their creation, the Tassel loafer has gone from strictly casual to the uniform of Armani-suited Wall Street traders. And today, I think that dangly Tassel loafers like wingtips are generally seen as not, it's kind of like a no-no with a formal wool suit and tie, but perfectly fine in business casual in situations, or with summer suit, something a bit more light like that. As an aside, I would like to talk about when to wear each loafer that we're talking about here, but the leather you choose matters just as much as the style of the loafer, in my opinion. Suede loafers are way more casual than quarterman loafers. You also want to look at the shape of the loafer. So ones with this slim waist and more almond-shaped toe, those are more formal, while casual loafers tend to be rounder and roomier as well. So it's not just is it or isn't it a tassel loafer. That's not the only thing that'll dictate when you might be wearing a pair of loafers, right? Next up, we have the Eriksen loafer. The Eriksen loafer is in black, and this is their rendition of the Horsebit loafer, or one of their renditions. They got one other one as well. We've got a Precisio creation for the Horsebit loafer. It was 1966. That was when the Italian designer Gucci, who you may have heard of, put a metal strap on the front of the loafer in the shape of a horse's snaffle bit, which is one of the things you put in a horse's mouth to kind of control where his head goes, right? That's what this is. So for a while, this is what people meant when they said Gucci loafers, right? And they wound up crossing the Atlantic and becoming kind of popular in Hollywood. The actor Peter Sellers, the director Francis Ford Coppola, they've all been seen rocking these. They got pretty popular in the 70s and the 80s, even in dressier climates. So its story is a little similar to the Tassel loafer in that it started out really casual, then became very dressy, and nowadays it has kind of, I think, returned to casual, Or if you ask, put this on, and you should. It's a very good fashion website kind of blog you should check out. According to them, the Horsebit is the most controversial loafer, partly because it got really associated with cutthroat Wall Street traders, who I guess were wearing nothing but loafers back then.
Greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
Maybe because they have more of that kind of chromy, sharp-edged look. These loafers in particular kind of became really emblematic of the 80s greasy Wall Street guys, more so than the Tassel loafer, which is a little more playful, you know what I mean? So put this on, likes them with pleated trousers and suits that are less cutting edge and more classic as far as fit and design goes, slightly more loose fitting stuff. The question of the loafer's dressiness is a complicated one. I touched on this earlier, but in addition to it depending a ton maybe even mostly on the leather itself rather than the style, the answer of like if you can dress up a loafer or not also depends on where you are. Like in England, loafers are not okay with a suit at all. I spoke to Crockett & Jones about it, a big brand over there. It makes absolutely no sense to them. Whereas here in New York City, I see it quite a bit, right? By the way, Beckett Simonon has 2 Horsebit loafers. This one's the Eriksen, the other one is called the Beaumont. The main way they differ is that they consider this to be a bit more casual because there's a more of a rounder and kind of slightly more voluminous toe. And also you got a rubber outsole here as well. So this is generally a little bit chunkier than the Beaumont, which is a bit more slim and a bit flatter, partly because it has true moccasin construction, which you might not know what that is. I'm going to tell you because the next loafer we're looking at is true mock construction. So this loafer here is the Lambert, which looks a lot like the Beaumont that I don't have, but you've seen on the screen. It looks a lot like the Beaumont just without the Horsebit, right? This looks like more like a traditional kind of Beefroll Penny Loafer. So what we've got here is true moccasin construction. I actually just returned from New England where I learned about this kind of construction at Rancourt, which is a really cool company in Maine that does this. And while most mock toes out there are basically aesthetic, which is to say the stitching around the mock is either totally decorative or it's just kind of holding 2 pieces of leather together, but the bottom of the shoe is still like the same as a plain toe shoe or boot. That is not the case with a genuine traditional mock construction, because with this sort of construction, the shoe is like the vam, like this bit here, is basically upside down. So there are no seams or anything like that on the inside there, and this just produces a much more comfortable fit. So people get really excited about it. Very, very few companies do it. Rancourt is one. I'm allowed to say them because this video isn't sponsored. Rancourt does it at a much higher price, to be fair. In addition to that true mock construction, this is a Beefroll loafer, which is a term you probably heard a lot before. What a Beefroll is that this little bit of leather here on the strap is kind of bunches up here with the stitching and doesn't really extend very far down. Like it ends here, this strap, and gets stitched onto the mock stitching. The idea is that where it bunches up here, it looks like when you like wrap up a beef roll and roast it, right? Behold the Fuentes loafer, titled the rugged loafer on their site and their most casual offering. This is the one that they said can be worn, quote, with your jeans or cargo pants or other relaxed styles. Now, I don't want to get too into a whole thing about cargo pants here, but look, the Fuentes is the most beefy tank-like loafer that I've encountered. You get a steel shank here, you get a substantial lug sole here for a lot of grip and traction, and a lot of depth and roominess as well. So it really is very different to the other ones that we've looked at so far. That's all you need to know about that one. We are going to look at my personal favorite, the Roy loafer, which is, in my opinion, the loaferiest loafer from Beckett Simonon. Like, it is the closest to that platonic ideal of the penny loafer, right? The Roy, to me, is just what comes to mind when I think of that word, of that term, the loafer, especially because it's suede, because I think suede and loafer go together really well. The Roy is very similar to the Cohen, which is the other loafer I didn't get. You can see him on screen here. The main difference, besides the shape of the little slot here, is that the Cohen is a lot slimmer, so it's the dressier of the two. And as a guy who doesn't dress up very often, I'm much more attracted to the Roy than the Cohen. The Roy is also a little bit similar to the Lambert, just with like less pronounced toe stitching, because the Roy doesn't have that genuine mock construction that I mentioned earlier, and the Lambert is Beefroll, while this is not. Like the strap here, you see it extends past and you don't get it like ending right here and bunching up the stitching there. So technically and officially, this not being Beefroll makes it a slightly more formal shoe, but I don't think people are really looking that much at your shoes, to be honest, that they'll like be shocked at a difference between like a Beefroll loafer versus like this version of loafer here, right? But to be honest, I'm not really that interested in the rules of more dressy clothes anyway. Like there's a lot to keep in mind when skirting more formal or dressy wear, and as a guy who has never had to wear a suit for a job, I know this might sound a little bit weird, especially because I have a YouTube channel about clothes, but like this channel is about casual wear, right? And one thing that always happens when I start to venture into dressy clothes and like rules of formality, when it depends on like what the Beefroll looks like, that kind of stuff, I'm not a guy who's that attracted to that sort of rigidity with the way people dress, right? Like that's just me. You might feel differently. I think partly because I never had that kind of job, and partly because I'm Australian and we're very egalitarian like that. We just don't respect the rules of the upper class. But look, I'm getting sidetracked here. I like the Roy the most. It is not the most popular loafer. That is actually the Beaumont. That one has over 300 reviews. But the Roy, to me, it's just a classic penny loafer look. It's not too dressy, it's not too slim, it's not too chunky. I think it's a lot more versatile than the dressier Cohen and the Beefroll Lambert, in my opinion. So I ended this with my favorite one, but all of these loafers have different things to offer. And yeah, that's why I look at the different loafer styles of Beckett Simonon, the pantheon of loafers from there. Obviously they know their stuff. The one thing, they aren't paying me for this video, so I'm allowed to say this, the one thing that bugs me about this company's loafers is they have so There's so many kinds of them and none of them are unlined. Like every company acts like lining a shoe makes it better. But if your loafers are unlined, they're less likely to slip off your heel, and also they breathe better too. So, you know, since many people only wear them in summer, I think I'm not the only guy who would prioritize breathability in like a suede loafer, you know what I mean? That is 7 kinds of loafers Beckett Simonon has. Let me know your favorites, and subscribe for more stuff about casual clothes that'll last a long time.